First story. Violent, entitled Stalker wants a servant. This is not my story but comes from a friend that is told with her permission. Possible trigger warning for some inappropriate and violent behavior and violent fantasies of the stalker. So the cast. My friend, whom I'll call C, at the time she was 25 and married. The stalker, whom I'll call A, he was 21 male, at the time and single with no prior significant relationship. I would describe C as quite attractive, intelligent, well-educated and athletic. I never met A, but C spoke often about the stalking among our friends. I did see many of the texts and emails and heard many of the voicemails, enough to see that he was very disturbed. A could be described as average-looking and out of shape. He did not complete high school nor did he get a GED. He was unemployed and lived with his parents. A was also physically and emotionally abused by his family. C said that those things did not make him undateable, but came into play during the stalking. C was part of a gaming group that included about 8 to 10 people, both online and in person. She was the only female gamer who participated regularly. There was one other woman who came in frequently. All of the other gamers were single. C's husband disapproved of this group because he thought it was juvenile and a waste of time, and that was a source of conflict between them. A few months after C joined, A joined as a friend of another gamer. A was very shy and withdrawn at first, being especially awkward around women. He was very intelligent though, being about to discuss topics and issues that were complex. He also had a reasonable talent for music. She would be the first to admit that she is a sucker for hard luck cases, and she made a lot of effort to befriend him and get him to come out of his shell. She advocated for him to obtain his GED and to start to find a job so that he could support himself or help his family. She would often treat him to food and give him suggestions about entertainment. There were times when C would be the center of attention, where the guys were vying for her to notice them. Jealousy would occasionally become an issue as two guys would disrupt the gaming because they wanted more of her time. She works as a pilot in a male-dominated field, and she can tell and endure wacky jokes with the best of them. And that was often interpreted as flirty behavior. Elsie will also be the first to admit that she can be flirty. It was about that time A began to attach himself to her. A became increasingly demanding of her time and attention. C described it as a black hole. No amount of attention or time was enough. He became increasingly jealous of any interaction that she had with another man. At first it was huffy, passive-aggressive behavior and comments, and disrupting the gaming, but developed into full-on rage. His personality became increasingly fluid, moving from shy and withdrawn to arrogant and overbearing very quickly. He became so disruptive that the gaming group soon fractured into smaller groups, with some people quitting outright. C and I have some academic background in psychology, and we thought that his behavior was consistent with borderline and narcissistic personality disorder. A demanded that C join his group, which she did. C then drove off any other guy, and it was only the two of them for a while. He would call or text C at all hours of the night. C indulged him at first. She admits this was a huge mistake and that caused conflict with her husband. A used that to try and drive a wedge between C and her husband, and A began referring to C as his girlfriend. A then revealed his feelings for C and said some horrifying things. A had some strange racial fixation that I won't detail here. These were things he was obsessed with the entire time of their friendship and the subsequent stalking period. He also revealed some disturbingly violent fantasies about C that he had. A had a plan for their affair where she would support him financially, emotionally, and physically. doing all of the work around the house and helping A's family while he would play some guitar music and write songs. He continually demanded money and other financial support, and eventually C knew she was in trouble. She admits that she should have just cut ties at that point, but she felt sorry for A because of his situation and wanted to let him down gently. Whenever she tried to back down, A would guilt trip her, talking about his abuse and how he was so alone. He would go into how she owed him since she was well off, well educated, and had a good career. He came from a background of privilege and he did not. So therefore she was required to make a man out of him. She began to float back to some of the other gaming groups, and when A found out, he threw epic tantrums and sent videos to C. He destroyed his room, punching holes in the walls and trashing everything. He beat his guitar on the ground for around 30 minutes until it was just shards of wood and string, and then kept going, all the while screaming, "This is you! This is you! This is not me!" Of course, he called C every name in the book. His parents and brothers had to subdue him. He would call, text, and harass in person the other guys in the group. They would tell him that she was married and out of his league, which would enrage him even further. He would fill up her voicemail with, "Fix me, fix me, fix me, fix me, fix me." He would scream at her that she was driving him crazy if she so much as spoke to another man in his presence. In the span of an hour-long video, A could present as hyper-syrupy. In the span of an hour-long video, A could present as hyper-syrupy, spouting bad love poetry and talking about his future with C. Too upset and arrogant, saying he was better and smarter than everyone. Too screaming rage, too uncontrollable sobbing, too shy and withdrawn. She would go from the most wonderful and beautiful person in the world to the spawn of the devil and back in a short time. I would have difficulty believing it if she hadn't shown me the videos and thousands upon thousands of texts and emails. She cut ties with him when he was arrested for harassment, but he got out in a few months and the beginning started and how he had changed and was a new man. I and her best friend Kay told C she was stupid, but she agreed to talk to him. This time was boundaries. Well, the boundaries went out the window in a week. He began to obsess on his fantasy that C would support him in every way and be available to him on call, and he would just sit at home and play guitar and write songs. He began to talk about his violent fantasies with her again as well. He spoke about it and wrote about it every time they were in contact. I and her best friend Kay told C she was stupid, but she tried there. I'll be so awful that he realized his mistake and run away tactic. She pulled out her supreme witch personality, but A revealed to her that he didn't mind her being a little mean to him. He also obsessed about the violent fantasies that he had for C and said that he would act on them. She immediately blocked him, but he found ways around that and it became like whack-a-mole. He enlisted mutual friends and others to pressure her into re-establishing contact. When C showed the people what A was doing, 100% of them apologized and backed off, cutting ties with A. The violence and rage escalated to the point where C did have to change her phone and close her social media. The authorities were notified and now she has been stalker-free since September 2021. She will be the first to admit she made some huge mistakes and learned from the incident. She is now much more circumspect and a little more reserved and is very careful with how she interacts with men she's unfamiliar with. Next story. An engineer's revenge. I worked as a mechanical design engineer for a small family-owned company that manufactured beverage dispensing equipment. The owner of this business, let's call him Bill, was an arrogant man that ruled with an iron fist. He insisted on being involved in every stage of the new product development cycle, from ideation to alpha and beta testing. At the time, I was designing a machine that would upgrade current output by 200%. Think a soda fountain was twice the speed. This machine was going to be Big Boss Bill's cash cow for the next fiscal year, so naturally he was very interested in it. He was projecting several $1 million in sales. It was in the initial build stage. A bunch of bumps, wires and motors, held together by unfinished steel brackets and zip ties. Apart from the final release look, he would often show up to my workstation with no PPE asking questions like, "Is this done yet? Did you fix the hydraulic system leaks? Why did you choose the most expensive valve for this design?" And so on. For those that don't know, being an engineer today is not like how it was in the 30s or 40s. Many think we're like Howard Hughes going to fancy parties and inventing cool gadgets and swimming in dollars. Many think we're like Howard Hughes going to fancy parties and inventing cool gadgets and swimming in money. Far from that, we get a BC and an assembly station to build our prototypes, getting our hands dirty like the rest of them, all while making just a little bit more than the average college grad. We need our space to ourselves to do our job. Having someone mess with your tools/projects hinders our work and creates obstacles in progress. If this someone happens to be the nosy owner of the company, your job gets 10 times more stressful. Big Boss Bill would come look at my unfinished project every Friday while I was away at lunch and play with wires, move tubes, abort test runs, and critique every aspect of it. He would send feedback through my boss telling him that components I selected were too expensive and that the soda mix was too watery. The alpha prototype was more than a year away and he was complaining that things weren't done yet. It's like telling the baker the cake tastes funny after tasting the uncooked dough. Bill was just unbelievable. The last straw was when Bill inadvertently reprogrammed the dispensing settings while my prototype was on a 72-hour simulation test run. I talked to my boss 3 levels below Big Bill to please tell him to stop interfering with my work, but everyone knew it was Bill's company and he owned everything in it. His dad left him in charge and he would do as he pleased with everyone's work. I had enough of Bill playing with my work and delaying it. One Friday I decided to set up my machine a little differently, knowing he was going to fiddle around. I punched up the juice in the pressure regulator, loaded a sour mix of coffee and soda in the cartridge, and reprogrammed the user interface with a big shiny button that read, "Slow serve, 12 ounces." I rerouted the dispensing tubes to point directly at the person standing in front of the prototype. If that wasn't enough, I installed a diffusing nozzle to it so it can spray him for maximum carnage. You wouldn't go touching an open breaker panel while the electrician works on it. Why would you go fiddling with a partial commercial product build? I wanted to teach him a lesson. It was covered with cowl, so it wasn't so obvious. I took that Friday off cause I didn't want to stick around for the imminent freak show. And a freak show it was. I get a call about 12:23 from work asking if I can come in. My coworkers told me that Bill, who is normally soft-spoken and observant, was covered in Pepsi and was cussing like a sailor. From the description of the lab tech who witnessed the madness, he said the whole lab was covered in black syrupy stuff and smelled like burnt motors. Bill pressed the self-serve 12 ounces immediately. I was peppered from head to toe in the stuff. But it gets worse. He wasn't alone. He had a tour of 3 potential buyers for his machine next to him who also got spunked. I set the output pressure so high that the dispensing nozzle became unhinged and violently spun around, causing tons of damage to the lab and its inhabitants. I didn't want this to happen. My pettiness went too far. And no, I was not fired, but was assigned a lengthy project to improve workplace safety and procedures. The man had the nerve to say I needed to take extra precautions to prevent unsafe builds from being operated by unauthorized persons. And Bill never fiddled with my